My name's Dave DeBow, founder of MoneyPartnerFormula.com, and this show is built for everyday real estate investors who are actively doing deals and looking to scale using other people's money. So if you're an active real estate investor and you want to get featured on this show to talk about your own real estate and capital raising experiences, then just go to daveinterviewyou.com. Now let's get rolling with this episode, and remember to subscribe for daily interview content. Hey folks, welcome back. Today we got a special guest, Mathieu Laquerre, who is a real estate entrepreneur. He's a Canadian doing a lot of stuff down south in the US of A. And he's also found a really cool way, especially for multifamily investors, to not only make their properties more appealing, but to also increase the profitability of their properties at not a huge expenditure. So interested in diving into that, Mathieu? Welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Dave. I appreciate you having me on your show today.
So let's look at two things first. So first things first, tell us a little bit about your real estate investing business. What does that look like as of mid-July 2024? And how did you get, as a Canadian, how did you start investing down south?
So essentially, I was trying to make the numbers work here locally. I'm from Ottawa, and 7, 8 years ago, the numbers weren't as attractive when I first started. So I started in the East Coast and then transitioned to the US. We're in Philadelphia, and then we just recently transitioned to Cleveland, and we're switching our business model really, really hard. We're
Well,
doing
what was it, and what are you switching to?
So essentially, we used to partner with developers. So we put up the money, they would find the land, and they would take care of all the developer fees and the process and all that. And we just piggyback on their experience and being our boots on the ground. And what I found over time is that we started losing control and not having as much information flow back to our group. And then the information doesn't get to the investors as quick as it used to. So we're pivoting where we are becoming the developer. I still have a US based partner, but now we are on, more on the GP side of things when we're doing our deals. So we're testing the market currently in Cleveland. So it's been a fun journey.
Yeah.
A couple hiccups here and there along the way. We had to fire a couple guys, but at the end of the day, I think we've got it dialed in, and we're excited to start digging. And it's kind of a funny thing. I find what we had to do to pivot is we took 20 step back. We're doing smaller projects just to understand the mechanics development, so we're not making mistakes, or if we make a mistake, it's not that expensive. We could afford to take the risk and
So what are these first builds going to look like, Mathieu?
So we're just doing a few duplexes, ground up development, and that's kind of what we're working on right now. So we're just waiting for the city to approve the severance of the lot. They're smaller, 1,700 square foot units. We're hoping to build and sell, possibly hold them, but the goal is to build and sell these.
Okay, very, very cool. Yeah, it's always a learning curve, and I imagine it would be even a little bit more complicated with the cross-border stuff and all of that good stuff that goes along with that. Okay, so that's what you're up to on the real estate side. Now, a number of months ago, about half a year ago, you got involved in something that's very real estate related or adjacent, and it's a way to help multifamily property owners really make their properties more appealing and more profitable at the same time. So what does that look like, Mathieu?
Exactly. So essentially what happened is we were toying with the idea of actually doing our first development project back into Canada. The deal fell through, and we were looking a way to increase our revenue, our net operating income for the building. And we came across a company called Wi-Fi Plex, and I'm now part of it. And essentially the great thing about this is that they bring in the internet to your building, and then you're able to split off the internet and include it in your rent. So you're able to increase your rent by $50 to $60. So depending on what city you're in and how they calculate your income, you're 16 to 24 times revenue. So, a small investment can make a big difference in your project and your bottom line, especially when you're using the CMHC programs for the bigger projects. it really, really makes a big difference in terms of your ROI on what you put in and what you get back out on the refi too.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, the company will install like
So we partner.
a big internet, the main internet service that you can split off to each individual unit. Now, is that what kind of internet is it? Is it cabled in? Is it it says Wi-Fi? Is it
So every the way to look at it is we partner up or Wi-Fi partners up with tier one providers. So it's not like the big three telecom companies that we know out there. There's a lot of wholesalers out there. So we bring in the main line into the building, and then we hardwire all the units. We put in a little adapter. We call it an AP adapter in each of the units, and each apartment has their own Wi-Fi network. So, and it's secure, easy to log in. And then the cool thing about it is a lot of the buildings now, you got to have Wi-Fi all across. So a lot of things work with the Wi-Fi. So leak detection, smart locks, and so forth. So on the back end, we create a second Wi-Fi network to be able to piggyback on all the back end stuff that runs on the Wi-Fi too. And especially when you're looking at a bigger operation, bigger buildings, these guys typically have two or three connections going into the building, one for the camera system, one for the intercoms, one for the fire system. So, if you look at that on average, around $110 a line to bring it in. So you bring in a bigger line, you split that signal, your hard cost goes down as an operator, and then you're able to pass that cost back to your tenants. But the beauty about the program and the process is that your tenants save a lot of money too. The average internet bill in Canada is $74 per household. So if you add an extra $50 to the rent, the tenants don't have to wait for the guy to come over at the house to connect the Wi-Fi. Majority of tenants now, except older tenants, are staying away from cable TV or telephone lines. So it's a good win-win. And Canada's evolving too. So there's a few IP services for television coming out in the next couple months. So as a landlord, you'll be able to offer, the internet, your cable TV, but through the internet, and just add an extra stream of income or revenue to your building. Back in the day, we used to look at the laundry centers, the parking
yeah.
lots as an extra source of revenue, but everybody wants the in-suite laundry. So that's kind of out of the question. You gotta give more amenities and more services. And I think it's a great way to increase the income of your building. Like for an example, um, I'm working on a 120 unit building. Hard cost is roughly $50,000 for the solution. When you add the extra revenue and when you add the extra value added to the building, you're over $1,036,000 for putting $50,000 in investment if you're able to get every tenant on board. And it's very, very high the adoption rate. It's above 95 to 98% that we've
Well,
seen.
that was what I was going to ask you, Matthew, is what I can see this being huge for a brand new building to
Yeah.
start everybody off day one with this option. But an existing building where everybody's got their own internet service, that I would think even with the cheaper price, that would be a bit of a challenge getting everybody switched over. What's
So the bigger buildings, the adoption rate's around 80%. When you have older tenants, they're used to their own thing. So they
yeah.
they take a bit of time to go on board. But from experience and from talking to other operators, typically what they do is they just give, right, the service is there. They just offer it for free. They start using it and they're like, oh, you know what? I'll cancel my old service. It's the same thing. And then they just add that extra revenue stream to their income.
Is there any challenges, especially in places like Quebec and Ontario and British Columbia, with such strong landlord tenancy laws and rules and regulations about increasing rents? Any challenges with that?
So we're a Montreal based company. So in Quebec, it's actually easier than Ontario, believe it or not.
No, I do
Um,
believe it. I do believe it actually.
it's you know it's it's accepted. There's 46,000 apartment buildings using the technology right now, units, and it's over 3,500 units. But the beauty about it is that adoption rate's really, really good, and the tenants understand it. And when they move apartments, they look for it for our services, which is really, really good for us. In Ontario, it's a little bit trickier. Um, we had to hire a lawyer recently just because I haven't done business in Canada in a long time, just to understand the landlord tenant board rules. So the legislation for rent increases in Ontario, you're capped at 2.5%. So
Yeah.
when you say telecom, you say cable TV, you can actually include that in your rents in Ontario and exceed your 2.5% rent increases. But the word internet is not in the legislation for that. So we can't, so you got to be very careful how you present it. So newer constructions, building, right? There's no rent cap. So that's really easy for penetration.
Yeah.
So on the older buildings, we got to be a little bit more sensitive on that aspect when we're working with operators. So it's a little bit trickier on that aspect. BC, we're getting in that market. I don't understand it yet. I haven't done my research on it, but we are in the process of doing the same legwork for BC.
Sounds good. I'd probably jump right into Alberta.
Yeah, Alberta.
Probably.
Look, Alberta is a market right now. We're very active in Alberta right now.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, like Alberta's like that's going to be our next big expansion in Canada, just because
It's
it's
easy. Yeah. You don't have
almost
to
like the
worry about
Wild West. There, you can do almost what you want, but
right. You don't have to worry about the landlord tenancy is like that in that respect. Okay, very, very cool. Sounds very positive. Yeah, and obviously you're in that business, but what are some of the pitfalls to this whole switch over thing or
so I think the pitfall, it goes two ways. So as an operator, you're like, I'm used to using the big telecom companies, and they're dealing directly with your tenant. So there's two options. Sometimes it's a fixed price. On average, it's $30 to $35 a month that they charge to the operator per unit to offer internet services, versus, depending on the size of the building, we're $10 to $12 a month, depending on the size of the building, maybe a little bit more.
Hmm.
And they think that, oh, it's going to be more phone calls, more headaches when we're offering it to the rent, but we have a call center open 7 days a week that manages the expectations of the tenants, and so kind of like the big telecom communications. And it's the same for the tenants. Like, well, what if some goes down or anything like that? And so it's a little bit more on educational side of us, but once it's a blended service and they understand the ecosystem that we're in, it's a great system. It's a one stop shop for what we do, and it's good for everyone.
Yeah. So what size of a building, like what's the minimum viable size of a building where A, you guys are willing to go in and install stuff, and B, where it makes sense financially for the owner to put it in?
At the 6 to 7 unit, it's really starts to really, it's worth spending the money for it. The smaller units, if you're, think about it, you bring in a line, it's $100, and you got 4 or 5 units, you're not really making money on it. You're just offering a service. But so I would say, really, when you start going to the 50 to 100 units, that's really when you're scaling. Give you an example. I've got a 178 unit building in Toronto, and just because it's downtown Toronto, a lot of competition. We got a crazy deal on everything. There are going to be less than $10 a month for the internet in the building at the cost to the landlord. So
So,
it, it
but a lot of our listeners and followers are kind of smaller landlords,
yeah.
smaller multifamily properties. So you're saying let's look at an eightplex, for example. What might that look like in a smaller scenario like that?
So an eightplex, you'd be looking at maybe $6,000 to $7,000 infrastructure, give or take, on that. And then you're gonna bring up the value of your building roughly 70 to maybe 100,000, depending how they're calculating the cap rate and everything in that region. And then when you look at the income, you're going to be looking at between $300 to $500, depending how you convert people, and so forth.
$300 to $500 income or cash flow, additional
Extra,
profit,
extra, extra income, extra cash flow,
extra cash
extra
flow.
cash
Yeah.
flow.
Okay. Yeah. So bottom line, it costs 6 or 7 grand to install everything. It would be costing about $100 a month. Is that what
Yeah,
you're saying, Gary?
for the service and that's in that type of building, you'd be roughly around $100 a month. We do
Uh-huh.
charge a small fee to monitor to give the technical support.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I would say roughly between let's say between 100 and $150 a month, depending of the cost of bringing
Right.
the
And then you're
equipment.
charging an extra $50 a month rent
Yeah.
times 8. There's $400. Yeah. So yeah, that's a pretty good return on investment for a relatively small investment. You'd be getting your money back, not even counting the increased value in the property value, but just your cash on cash return would be pretty darn good very quickly.
Exactly. Typically, the bigger the building, the faster it gets paid off.
Yeah, of
Smaller
course.
buildings, 12 to 14 months is when you start getting you get your full money back. But the bigger stuff, you're 8 to 10 months, you recoup all your capital investment in it.
Yeah, very cool, Matthew. So what other kind of services do you guys do, or is it just the internet service, or is
There's
there
other
anything
stuff that
else?
there's other stuff that we're working on. We do intercoms, camera systems, there's the voice over IP stuff, but it's not, we just offer it to offer it if somebody really, really wants to get it. But the main bread and butter that we're after is basically, we kind of say we're the backbone of the building. We future proof your building because
Mhm.
let's face this, the internet's taking over everything. Your property managers going in, taking pictures, they want to upload it, like you got the free Wi-Fi in these buildings, especially the older buildings too. Sometimes on the concrete, there's not a good cell phone signal in it. So our stuff just meshes really well with retrofitting older buildings or
Yeah,
implementing
very
technology.
cool. Well, hey, this has been very interesting, Matthew. If people want to connect with you and find out more about the service, where should they go? What should they do?
So best place to connect with me directly is on my link on LinkedIn or check us out on wifiplex.ca.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much. And yeah, all the best with the new business venture.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on today.
All right, everybody, take care. We'll see you on the next episode. Hey there, I really hope you enjoyed that episode. And as always, if you want to listen to more daily interview content, make sure you subscribe. And if you're an active real estate investor and you're doing deals and you'd like to get featured on this show, then just head over to daveinterviewyou.com. Now, at moneypartnerformula.com, we help real estate investors to create a process for predictably getting capital so they can do more deals without relying on hard money lenders or the banks. We do this by building them a private capital marketing system. Now, if you want help turning yourself into a big money capital attraction machine, then book a call with our team to see how we can help. Just visit moneypartnerformula.com to find out more. All right, take care, and we'll see you on the next interview.